Welcome to today's webinar, Identifying and Using Your Transferable Skills, hosted by myself, Kevin Martlage, the president of Nextier Advisors, and sponsored by your Chatham Area Public Library. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about the presentation we have for you today, where we're going to talk about identifying and using your transferable skills in a variety of different aspects. But the most important is, what are some ways that you can go about identifying those skills and then using them as you go about either continuing your job search or searching for that next step in your career. So we'll jump right into it today. So my name is Kevin Martlage, and I own a consulting firm called Nextier Advisors, and I specialize in working with individuals and organizations on identifying how they can enhance their performance, their teamwork, and their careers through intentional conversations and solutions. And I'm a true believer, before we jump into the content today, that having awareness of your personal interests and styles is helpful in identifying rewarding career opportunities, work activities, and leadership enhancements that can lead to a more engaging and intentional career, which we all want to have, I'm sure, as we continue within the workforce and continue on our career journey. So a little background about myself and kind of how I approach working with individuals and organizations regarding their career development. And to be truly intentional about your career development, and kind of as a baseline to our discussion about transferable skills today, I really feel like you need to understand you before you can become truly intentional about your career. And there's a lot of different things we're going to talk about today, specifically about your transferable skills and how to identify those. But I think it's also important that you are able to identify certain things about yourself that will help you identify those transferable skills. So I like to talk a lot about the 4 W's. The 4 W's are who you are. So what makes you the individual that you are in terms of your career, your personal life, your goals, your aspirations as an individual. What is it that you value? So not only in your personal life, but also in your career, what are some things that really mean the most to you? And then what do you like to do? You know, I think that's the biggest thing when you start talking about careers, and specifically identifying your transferable skills is what is it that you like to do? And what is it that you can do? And what are some opportunities for you to go out and honestly make a living, or simply make an impact on the world or the people around you, your community? What are some of those things that you do, and how can you translate those into some impactful work, whether that be, you know, a paid job or volunteerism or whatever it might be? And then the last thing is, what kind of environments allow you to be the most productive? And I think that's a very important question to ask yourself as you start to look at your career. And we're going to go through some steps today as we're identifying your transferable skills. It's going to ask you about what are some environments that you lived in, or you worked in rather, and what are some things that you did that were successes to you? And then how do we pull out from those your transferable skills? So those are 4 career W's. We're not going to spend a lot of time going through those today. That's for another webinar. But I think it's very important that as you look at your transferable skills, you're also looking holistically at yourself and your career as to what you want to do, is who you are, what you value, what you like to do, and the environment you like to work in. And then the last thing I like to talk about, which we're going to start with today, is what are some of my best skills? And that's where we're going to jump into our transferable skills today. And I think all of those things together will help you not only understand yourself personally, but also help you identify maybe some occupations or opportunities that might align with those items. And specifically, we're going to talk about how you can take your transferable skills once you've identified them, and how do you align those with maybe some career opportunities, finding that first job, making a career change, or whatever it might be. So that's kind of the basis of our program today. In our webinar, we're going to start jumping into them right away. So regardless of your career journey and where you are in that career journey, transferable skills are extremely important to identify and understand. So whether you're looking for that very first job and you're like, you know, I have no idea what I'm going to do. You could be a sophomore or junior in high school, even a senior in high school, and you're like, what am I going to do after school? Is it going into the trades? Is it going to the military? Is it going, onto a, post-graduation education, like a college or a trade school, whatever it might be? But sometimes when you identify your transferable skills, you can then start to look at, okay, here's some things I'm really good at. here's some things I enjoy, and what can that first job be, and what can that look like. Also, you might be in a place in your career journey where you have that first job, or you've been in the workforce for quite some time, and you're looking for that new job. Hey, I want to maybe go somewhere else, or I want to go do something else. I feel like I've accomplished everything I maybe can accomplish at this point in time, or there's just some things that I value more importantly, that I want to start to look at a career change, whatever that might be. Your transferable skills, once you identify those, can help you guide yourself into some of those new job opportunities that you could pursue and look for. It may just be that you're in that part of your career journey where I want something different. I'm very happy with maybe the place I'm working right now, but maybe there's something else I can do either within that organization, or I want to make a complete career change, much like I did a few years ago, where I went from working in corporate America to the nonprofit world. It was time to do something different. And so by identifying your transferable skills and going through some of the things that we're going to talk about today, it can be very helpful for you to help you identify maybe some of those other opportunities that you can make an impact in your career. All of these things together, your experience that you gained up to this point in your life or in your career journey, your transferable skills that we're going to help you identify today, all of those things we can use as guide rails, or in this instance, the rails on a train track, to help you get to your career goals and identify what those career goals might be. So that, again, just kind of a little more context as to how you can use some of your transferable skills to guide your career in a certain direction, or to start that career and then to continue to build upon that career if that might be where you're at in your career journey. So some goals for today. We're going to discuss the importance of self-awareness in your career development, and specifically your self-awareness of your transferable skills. We're going to help you understand basically what transferable skills are. You might be saying to yourself, what is a transferable skill? I think I know, but we're going to help you define some of that. We're going to help you then go through some steps to identify your transferable skills. And there's a couple different approaches that we're going to talk about today, but there's many others that we also offer, or that we can suggest. And then we're going to show you how understanding your skills can be helpful in your overall career journey and what you would like to achieve as a person that's going to make an impact on the world and in their career and in their job and with their personal life. And then at the end, we're going to provide you some additional resources that can help you intentionally, discover some of those things in your career using your transferable skills that will help you kind of develop, next steps in your career, or help you understand, using your transferable skills, how you can achieve some of those goals that you're looking for in your career and in your life by using your transferable skills. So those are the goals for today's webinar, and I hope that by the end of our time together, we will have successfully accomplished those things. So we're going to start, before we get into how you identify your transferable skills, understanding the importance of self-awareness. And I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner, where I come in and I can do assessments with you about what are your personal interests, how do you go about collecting information and making decisions on that, and really helping you dig into yourself as an individual and kind of what makes you tick and what you're most interested in. And so getting into some of the 4 career W's that I help people go through, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but I think it is very relevant as you're looking at this holistically, is the who I would describe myself as. So if I was to ask you, how would you describe yourself? My goal for you is to come up with a statement or two about how you would describe yourself as an individual. What is it that makes you who you are? And we'll get back to why these are important here in just a second. Then we're going to say the why, what I value is. What do I value in a job? What do I value in life? What do I value as a person? Another statement about those things. What I would enjoy spending my work time doing. What is it you like to do? Write those out, have a couple statements as to, what it is that you enjoy doing. And then where I would like to work in. What kind of environments make you work or help you to be the most productive? And so by writing all these things out and then getting into some of the Myers-Briggs strong interest inventory stuff that we're going to talk about here in a second, you're going to have a very good baseline of these are some things that how I would describe myself, how I value things, how I spend my work time, and what are environments I work in. And then as we come up with your skills, it's going to help you identify what am I good at. And then that's going to help you understand, okay, I'm really good at these things. I have success in these things. And I know who I am, what I value, and what kind of work environment I want to be in. And so all those things together are going to help you understand who you are. And so getting into the Myers-Briggs strong interest inventory information, after you've kind of started with those 4 career W's, and you're understanding a little bit more about yourself, there's some things that we call Holland codes. And as a Myers-Briggs strong interest inventory practitioner, we do a lot of consulting with people about helping you understand what those Holland codes really are, and specifically what your interests are as an individual. Because if you can understand your interests, you can understand the who, why, what, where, the value of all the 4 W's, and your personal transferable skills, that's a really good look at some things that you can take then as you're intentionally designing your career and making that next step. So without going into too much detail, because this is a whole nother kind of webinar in itself, but I want to give you at least a high level overview that's going to help us with our transferable skills, there's basically 6 Holland codes that we focus on: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. All of those we put on this hexagon here, and the closer they are in relative to each other, so like realistic and investigative, there's a lot of similarities between those 2 categories in terms of interest that people might have in those categories. The further apart they are, there's still some similarities, but there's some more differences there. And we'll get into that here in just a second. But it's very important how these are on this hexagon, because as you start to understand your Holland codes and where your personal interests lie and so forth, there's some things that you can use with these, which I'll show you here at the end, on how you can go about identifying, some careers that may allow you to be in those categories and use your personal interests, as well as lining those up with the skills that you already have. So a really quick description of the categories. If you have interest in the realistic category, we describe those as the doers. Those are people that really like to kind of get their hands dirty. They're out there doing the work. They enjoy being outside. They enjoy doing, using their physical skill to achieve things. They really enjoy being in those active environments that help them feel engaged with what they're doing and connected to their work. So that is the first category, realistic. And as I'm going through these, I'd like you to kind of think to yourself, which categories, 1, 2, or 3 categories, kind of resonates with me just this very high level. And like I said, this could be an entirely other webinar, digging into these to help you really understand what those categories are. But I think it's important to give you a high level overview for the context of this webinar today. The next one is investigative. So investigative category, people that are in this category in terms of their interests, they're the thinkers. They're very analytical. They love to have those opportunities to kind of investigate things, to use data, to use numbers, to use their mind really to figure out what the problem may be and so forth. And so their career motivator in this case, in the investigative, is analyzing. Anything that they can do to kind of figure out a problem or to be very in the weeds in terms of how something works, they fall into this category of investigative. So they approach things from a very analytical mindset. The next one is artistic. We call this category the creators. People that fall into this category in terms of their interests and things that they enjoy, they love to express their creativity. And that could be in the form of, say, hey, I'm an artist. I love to do, be on the stage. I like to be very creative. It could even be somebody that's involved in, like as a chef, something like that. But anything that you can do to express your creativity, or those opportunities that allow you to express your creativity, are things that are very important and people in the artistic category find very interesting. So you can kind of think to yourself, what are some careers that may fall into that category if you're somebody that likes to express their creativity. The next category would be social, and we describe this as the helpers. Anything that people that are in this category, they have a lot of interest in just helping others. It's all about serving others. It's all about being there to help support other people. It's all about kind of making an impact on the world in a way that they're doing that through helping other people. And so people that fall into this category, that have an interest in this category, is all about their career motivator is helping others. So you can kind of think about some careers there like, teaching, nurses, doctors, even lawyers, things like that. Those are the kind of people that really have that interest of helping other people and doing all that they can to support other people. The last one is enterprising, or the next one is enterprising. In this description, we call the persuaders. And so their career motivator is persuading and influencing. So typically people that have interest in this category, they like to be in those type of leadership positions. They like to be supporting others, much like the social, but in a more leadership type role where they're helping to develop other people, they're helping to lead other people, they're helping to help groups of individuals kind of reach a goal. So anything that falls into this category, it's all about persuading and influencing, and not in a bad way, but rather they like to really support other people and help lead other people to achieve their goals and things. And now the last category, conventional. We call this category the organizers. So their career motivator is anything they can do to organize and to be in a very organized, structured kind of environment. People are very engaged that have interest in this category. And so you can think about some of the locations of the careers that may allow you to do this. So, being in like, say, a warehouse situation where it's very structured, but maybe in a leadership role in that warehouse, or being in those environments that are very structured, so bigger organizations that have, specific jobs and duties and departments, and the whole environment is very structured and organized. That is something that people that have interest in this find to be very engaging, and they enjoy doing things along those lines. So that's kind of a very quick overview of the 6 RACIC categories, which we're going to then tie to our transferable skills when we identify them. But we find that as we go through this, most people are a combination of 2 or 3 of these themes. And sometimes it's just very clear that it's only one. But one of the tools I'm going to give you here at the end of the day is, even at a very high level, if you say, okay, I'm realistic and investigative, that really resonated to me, what Kevin said. I want to look into those categories a little bit more. One of the tools we're going to give you here at the end is you can put in that category, and it'll give you jobs that align with that, but it'll also show you under those jobs what are some of the skills that are required, which is how we're going to tie all this back together to identifying your transferable skills. So a very good kind of baseline overview that'll give you some context as we go through the rest of the webinar today. So one other thing that's important as you think about your Holland codes is the next step in that is your interest scales. And this is where you really start to talk about and line up some of your skills that we're going to identify. So if you look at the 6 categories, these are some skills or interests that fall into those categories. So for instance, if you have a lot of interest in, say, the investigative category, some things you might be interested in is science, research, medical science, mathematics. Realistic, you can see mechanics, construction, computer hardware, electronics, military, protective services, nature and agriculture, athletics. And you can see the rest of the basic interest scales that fall into those categories. And these are important to kind of understand because, or at least to think about, because if you take the high level that you're interested in, say conventional, and then you can drill it down a little bit more and say, okay, I feel like I'm a very organized person. I like to be in those organized environments. So what are some careers or some things that I could do that would allow me to use those interests and be in those environments? So you could look at, office management, taxes, accounting, programming, information services, finances, investing. Those are some high level careers or interests that you could look into. And then you can start to imagine, as we're getting into our transferable skills here in a second, what skills you would need to be in an office management position, what skills you would need to be kind of in taxes and accounting in a CPA kind of role or a CFO kind of role. What about finance and investing and so forth? So that's just another way to kind of, as you're drilling down and understanding your transferable skills, you can start to then put them into some of these categories that helps you kind of narrow your job search and understand what some other opportunities might be for you in your career journey. So that's a lot of kind of background. You're probably like, when are we going to talk about transferable skills? Well, this is where we're going to do that. So you have a little bit of a background now as to your Holland codes, the 4 career W's, why it's important to identify yourself about the who, what you value, where you want to work, what you like to do. Now we're going to kind of wrap it all up and talk a little bit about your transferable skills. And we're going to spend the rest of the time going over that and how you use those things. So what are transferable skills anyway? Transferable skills are skills that you can use in every job, no matter what the title or the field may be. And so I want you to think very, high level as to what are some of the things that I'm good at, that no matter what job I approach, those are some things that I can kind of bring to the table. From my perspective, employers really seek out transferable skills because they know you will most likely have the tools to help you go beyond the job description that they may have put out there. And so with every job description or job posting, it's going to say, here's some desired skills that we're looking for, whatever. But it also, the more aligned your skills are with that job description, it means it's going to be a smoother onboarding process, perhaps. It's going to help you get integrated into that field a little bit quicker because you're going to have some of those baseline skills and transferable skills that are going to allow you to hit the ground running, so to speak. So those skills, along with your experience, is going to allow you to get into that job and to move forward and get on board in that job very quickly. So that's very important for employers to kind of understand what those transferable skills are. And for you in that interview stage, or when you're talking with that employer, that next step in your career, you're able to articulate those things about, here are some of my skills that I bring to the table, and here's some actual examples of when I use those skills, which we're going to get to here in just a second. Transferable skills are also yours to keep and are what makes you unique as an individual. So as we talk about that train track image that I had there at the beginning, your transferable skills and your experience, that's yours to keep. No matter what employer you go to, where you go in your career, your experience and your transferable skills are yours forever. And as you continue to develop that experience and develop those skills, it's going to make you continue to be more marketable to different employers, more marketable to other people. So if, say, you want to get into a volunteer situation, you may bring some skills to the table that somebody's looking for to help advance an organization. But your skills and your experience are yours to keep forever. And that's why it's important to kind of identify those skills as you move forward. So why else is it important to identify the transferable skills you possess as a candidate for a new job or as you succeed in your current job? It sets you apart from others, I think, is the biggest thing. There may be similar transferable skills that you have that maybe a colleague has, or say another candidate has that's vying for the same position that you are. But how you approach those skills and how you understand your transferable skills and how you've achieved developing those skills and some specific things, that sets you apart from other people. And it's very important as you continue to look inward to understand yourself, you're able to identify those skills that you have, as well as how you've used those skills in the past so you could articulate those appropriately. It'll help you identify potential jobs that are aligned with your skills. So, if you're looking for that, hey, what's next? I just need a change. You can start to just look at your skills that you have and what jobs would allow you to use those skills. That's one way to do it, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Instead of just going out there and, cruising Monster or looking at Indeed or whatever, hey, what jobs are out there? You can be a little bit more intentional because you know what skills you can bring to the table and what jobs are out there that I can, go pursue. It can help you identify potential next steps in your career based on skills and interests. So as you're developing these skills and you say you're already in that position, you can look at, hey, here's some skills that I have. Some of them are more developed than others. And so if I want to get to that next step, maybe I have to focus on developing skills X, Y, and Z that I have. So that's another way that can help you identify potential next steps in your career and help you achieve those. And most importantly to me, is it allows you to continue to understand, identify you regarding your career and your overall goals. So it's just another way of helping you to identify what am I good at and what is it that I can, offer those people as we continue to achieve those goals. So some common transferable skills, in case you're wondering, and these are just, general relationship building, teamwork, creativity, conflict resolution, execution of tasks, communication, project management, writing, active listening, leading others, leading a project, critical thinking, all very important skills that we have out there. And there's 100 others that we're going to help you identify. But these are some of the kind of common ones as you're looking at what your transferable skills are, just to give you an idea of what some of those are that are out there. So how do you go about identifying your transferable skills? The easiest way is just to make a traditional list and rank them, just like I did. Just start to think about what are the things you're good at and what are some of the skills that you use in your everyday life, whether you have that job, you're looking for that job, whatever, but just make a list of those and rank them. So you can do that by saying, what am I good at doing? What do you do on a regular basis at your current job or in your life? Why do you feel that you're good at these things? And what are some tangible results that you have? So that's something you can do right now. You could just start making that list by asking yourself those 4 questions and writing those out. And so that's one very quick and easy way just to start identifying skills and to help you kind of start down this path. The other way, which is the preferred way that I like to do it, is to use what we call a success story method to help you identify these skills. And so I have a colleague and strategic partner called Wayfinders Consulting over in Indianapolis that uses this method to help identify potential occupations and careers with individuals. And we use this as part of what we call the total life mapping process to help people understand what impact they want to make in the world, not only in their life, but in their personal life and just in general. And so I think it's really cool to kind of use this one step in that overall process, because I think it's a very good way to help you identify your transferable skills, which I'm going to take you through today. Success stories can help you identify those skills we said, and also aligning those skills and interests provides an intentional career path, your full life purpose, and what you want to try to do with your career. So the success story process is very simple. If you could think back from as far back in your life as you can remember, and write down examples of 10 success stories that include things that you were passionate about and you excelled at. Basically things that you like and were very good at. And this doesn't have to be the, hey, you were the expert at this thing, but you just have a really good feeling of, hey, I remember there was this thing that I did and I was passionate about it. I was engaged. I felt like I was very good at it. And I want to write that down. And when you write these success stories down, you don't have to write an entire book. It's just write 1 or 2 sentences to remind you of what that success story is. And I think if you start, I always have people start back as far as they possibly can remember, and then work their way up in, say, 5 or 10 year increments, depending on how old you might be, or even in year increments if you're younger, maybe just getting out of high school or whatever. But really think about some of those things that you're successful at. The stories must be both. You have to be passionate and felt like you're really good at it. However, it does not mean you're an expert, as we said, but you have to have some kind of positive ability towards it. And these stories can include things like volunteering, athletics, school projects, jobs, projects you worked on around the house, maybe starting something new, something you've created, a personal goal that you achieved, etc. So there's really no guidelines other than you have to be very engaged and passionate about it and feel like you were very good at these things. So as you're writing down those 10, write a couple sentences about each, and also be thinking about not only being able to describe your success, but illustrate why you were passionate about that and why you felt like you excelled at those things. So once you come up with those 10, the next step is to try to, and this is the hard part, is to take those 10 and try to identify your top 3. So if I say, if I was to sit there with you and say, okay, describe to me your 10 success stories, and after we go through those, say, okay, now pick your top 3, what would they be? And that's a very difficult thing to do, but I think it's important to do that. So after you've done that and you've come up with your top 3, start to think a little bit more in depth about those three, about what skills you may have used to achieve that success. And if we were doing this one-on-one, we have some list of skills that you can kind of go through that tie to those Holland codes and so forth. But in a situation like this, where we're having just a webinar, just start to think about some of those skills that you used in those situations that made you successful in those top three. As you chart out your skills, you'll begin to see trends, which will help you identify those skills that you use on a consistent basis to help you, achieve that success. And so just list it out. So, story one, here's some of the skills I use. Story two, here's some of the skills I use, and so forth. Those identified skills can be used in a variety of ways as you begin your career, continue your career, or start to make a change in your career. So to illustrate this a little bit better, we're just going to take an example that, say you've come up with your top 3 success stories. You've come up with some of your identified skills that have been, that were common themes across these stories. And there could be some skills that, as you're identifying, maybe only used in one story, that's fine. But you're going to list all your skills down the left-hand side of the page, and your success stories, just a word or two to remind you which one it is across the top of the page. And then I want you just to go through and place a check mark next to what skill you used in each story. And you're going to go through that, and you're going to have a chart that you've created, right, that shows that. And then you're going to total it up on the right side. So for instance, in this situation, a skill of, hey, show leadership was used in all 3 success stories. So that would be a 3. And teamwork, success story 2, I really felt like I used teamwork in that situation. Communication, I felt like I was always very good in communicating in all 3, and so forth. And then you're also going to total up each success story, which one had the most skills that you've used across the bottom of the page. And so this is very interesting to do. And you're like, gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. But what this is going to do for you is as not only help you identify what skills you have, because if you look over here, obviously leadership, leadership and communication were my top 2 identified skills I have, where then I have creativity, creative listening, critical thinking, and technology skills were my second kind of level. So I feel very good about my leadership and communication being a transferable skill, perhaps. Okay. It's also going to help you as you get into, say, that interview stage, or writing your cover letter, or writing your resume even. But more specifically, as you get into that interview stage, you're going to be able to talk about, if somebody comes to you and says, okay, tell me about a time where you exhibited really good leadership and you felt like you were successful. You're automatically going to be able to go to your success story number 2. Let me tell you about a time when I just got out of high school and I led this project, and whatever it might be, right? So these are going to help you not only identify your skills, but also help you to articulate around how you use those skills and some specifics around that. So you could see as you start to get an interview stage, this success story 2 had a lot of skills that you use. So that's something you want to be very up on and be able to talk about as you're getting into that interview stage, or people are asking you about what you're bringing to the table and so forth. So once you have those identified skills, you can then start to look at, okay, what's my development level within those skills? And so leadership, teamwork, communication, I feel really good. And you're almost doing this as a hierarchy, here of, which one I feel like is most developed versus my technology skills are still important and I feel good about them, but maybe I need some work to do that. So as you're looking at maybe that next opportunity or whatever that requires critical thinking, you're like, hey, I've got some examples where I've done critical thinking and that's considered a transferable skill of mine. But for this job, that's very important. So I may need to be able to talk about what am I doing to advance my knowledge in critical thinking to be as effective as I possibly can. So you want to go through and develop, kind of prioritize those skills. The next thing I'd suggest that you do is, what made you successful in those categories? So write out a line or two next to each one about what was it specifically that you did that you felt like you were really good at. So for instance, in this case, under leadership, I led a team of 15 individuals towards a common goal. Teamwork, I collaborated with 3 different departments during a project. Communication, how to develop and present a daily status update to upper management that was very well received, perhaps. Creativity, was given a set of goals and had to figure it out. So what goals were those? How to go about creating those steps to achieve those goals and so forth. So you can kind of see as you go through here, what made you successful. That's going to continue to help you articulate how you feel like, why you feel like that is such a transferable skill and something you're very good about or good at, which will help you in those interview stages or as you're talking with people about what you are bringing to the table. So this process identifies important information for you to use in a variety of different ways, as we said, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. So you've now gone through the 10 success stories, you've identified your transferable skills, prioritize those as to in terms of your development comfort level with each one of those. And you've also started to write down some specifics about what made you successful or why you feel like those are great transferable skills for yourself. So once you have that information, you get into even more details as you're writing out these categories. You want to be as specific as you can. You want to document metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, whatever it may be, some specific things that say, okay, I led a team of 15 individuals towards a common goal. Well, what was that goal? What was the makeup of that team, those 15 individuals? I had 2 marketing people, or I had 3 teachers that I helped lead through this, and 4 students, or whatever it might be. You want to be as specific as you can in terms of outlining what it is that you felt like you were successful in these. This will help you develop your narrative around each one, and it'll help you eventually align those skills with the job description. As you go through that, I just encourage you to go one step further and start to make even some more specifics about each one, so you can begin to continue to talk about and understand how you use those skills in real life situations. So once you've done that, your success stories, you identify your skills, you prioritize them, you've written down what made you successful in all those, you're as specific as possible. Now it's time to finally use your identified skills. And this is where it starts to get really fun. So we're going to use a couple different scenarios as we go through this, how you can use this. So this first scenario is, say you're looking for that very first job, and you don't know what you want to do. You're just maybe out of high school, or maybe you've had some life situations that have kept you out of the workforce for quite a while, and now you're trying to get back into the workforce or entered in the workforce for the first time, whatever it might be, but you're looking for that first job. The place I would suggest you start first is you look at those Holland codes. Let's look at those 6 categories and just, what are some things I'm interested in? Okay, I like to be very artistic, or I like to be very social, where I'm in a situation where I love to help people and support other people. Or maybe I like to be very realistic. I like to, use my physical labor to achieve goals and get out there, get my hands dirty and working with individuals and machines and tools and things like that. So you're kind of thinking at a very high level is, what are the things that I'm most interested in, and how does that categorize, into these 6 Holland codes? What are the 1, 2, or 3 that I'm most interested in? And then after you understand that, so say you're realistic and investigative, you're going to then start going through your 4 career W's. Who are you? What do you value? What do you like to do? Which environments allow you to be most productive? So you're going to have your high level interests. You're then going to kind of tie that to who you are and what you value and so forth. And it's going to start to paint a picture about, hey, these are some things that maybe I should look at and pursue as that kind of first job. Then you're going to add in your identified skills, so the things you've been very good at. And now you're going to have 3 data points. Here's the things I'm interested in. This is who I am as an individual. And here's some skills that I could bring to the table that I've identified through my success stories and so forth. And that's going to help me come up with some targets and help me intentionally discover and plan my career as to what are some of those first jobs that I should go pursue and to look into further. And so then you're going to start to come up with a list. I'm going to show you some tools here that you can use using your skills versus your Holland codes and so forth. But then you can be very targeted as to what jobs I want to look at, because I know that I'm going to, 1, find it engaging because I'm interested in those things. It's going to help me support my values of who I am as a person and the environments I like to work in and so forth. And oh, by the way, I have all these skills too that I could bring to the table. It's going to help me be successful as soon as I jump in there. So other ways to identify some potential jobs is you can just use your 4 career W's. So when you look at describing yourself, what jobs might allow me to be who I am? What jobs might have the same shared values as I have? What jobs might provide me the opportunity to do what I love doing, spending my work time doing? And what jobs might provide me the best environment for me? And then, like we said, what jobs allow me to use my skills? So that's another way, as you're looking at your interests and you're using these 4 career W's and then your transferable skills, you can start to ask yourself, okay, what jobs allow me to be who I am? And that's another way that you can kind of target to use those things. The next scenario we're going to talk about is, say you're making a career change. So say you've been in the workforce for quite some time, you've been very successful at different things, or it's just time you have some personal things that come up that say, okay, I need to make a career change. I had some friends the other day that have been in a certain situation and worked at a certain company, and one of them had to move cross country to keep their job. And so as a family, they decided to make that move. And so the one person had a job when they moved, the other person had to think about a career change. They have to do something different now in this situation. So the way you can approach that using all the tools that we've talked about today in your transferable skills is you would start with your transferable skills in this situation. Okay, here's some things I've done in my career that I'm very successful with, both in my personal life and in my career. And let's start by identifying those skills first. Then we're going to put it through the lens of, okay, who am I? What do I value? What do I like to do? What environments make most productive? And chances are, if you're making that career change, you're going to be most comfortable in the things you've done already. But perhaps this is a point in time in your life where you have to say, okay, I have all these transferable skills. I need to make a career change. I'm going to push myself. Maybe I have this opportunity to look and do some other things that would help me align with my values and what I want to be and who I want to, what environments I want to work in, and who I am as an individual. And then you can kind of look at, okay, what are some of the interests? I know that, I'm realistic and investigative. And so let's start looking at jobs and some career change opportunities that fall into those categories to help round it out. So you're still using the same 3 data points, specifically this time, starting with your transferable skills, because those are some things you're already bringing to the table. You already have some real work-life type experience, career experience that you can talk about and put into your job search to help you then, kind of more formalize and align with your 4 career W's that maybe at this point in your career, you haven't had the chance to really focus on, hey, let me do some things that align with my values as a person. Let me align some things with some environments I find most productive. Because a lot of times as you're getting that first job, you're kind of just taking that first job to get your foot in the door. And so now this is the opportunity that you can kind of reassess and using your transferable skills and align with your 4 career W's. And again, this will help you just with intentional career planning in terms of taking all these data points. And then I'm looking at, okay, here's some opportunities and some jobs that I think I would like to align with all these things. So let me go see what jobs are out there and available. So you can use your 4 career W's and your transferable skills in a similar way, but you're going to ask yourself some questions about that next step in your career in a little bit different manner. So when you say, I would describe myself as, you're going to start to say, how have I grown professionally and personally up to this point in time in my career? And do I need to change? Has that changed kind of who I am and what I'm bringing to the table and how I maybe describe myself? Because I now have some real life work experience. And I can, I would maybe describe myself a little differently now than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago when I first got into the workforce, because I've grown professionally and personally. So you want to kind of reassess yourself at that point in time. Have my professional and personal values remain the same, or have they changed? Personal values don't change very often, in my opinion, because that's kind of the core of who you are. But there could be some professional values and things that, as you get older, it may be, hey, I need to really value kind of a good work-life balance now, or when I was younger, I didn't have to worry about that. Or, what, my skill development, my personal development is so important to me now, where maybe as I was younger, it wasn't, because I was just all about working and getting that experience. So you want to ask yourself, have my professional and personal values remain the same, or have they changed? What about my job do I still enjoy? And what would I change? Especially as you're making a career change, you obviously, anybody wants to keep doing the things they enjoy and maybe change the things they don't enjoy. Perfect time to kind of reassess that and to then align with my skills and say, okay, I really enjoy doing these things. And oh, by the way, I use these transferable skills when I'm doing those things. So I need to make sure that my next job allows me to do both of those things. There's some things over here that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, and I don't really get to use my transferable skills. So you know what? I don't mind doing those things, but if I could find a job that minimizes those things, I'm going to be more engaged and I'm going to be more effective in what I'm doing because I'm going to be using things I'm very good at. Does my current environment still support me in being productive? There's a lot of times I talk with individuals all the time where they get their perfect job, their dream job, and they get in there and they're like, oh my gosh, this environment is not what I expected. And I just don't feel like I'm productive anymore. And so you have to work on being intentional about how can I help change that environment. Or at some points in times, you just may have to make that career change because to get yourself out of that environment if you don't feel like it's something that you can continue to grow. So it's a great time, again, as you're making that career change, to really look at what that environment is and what is it about it that makes you most productive. And then as you're talking with the people and getting that first interview and making that career change, these are all things that you can use to ask the person interviewing you, what's the environment like here? I find that I'm most productive when XYZ is in place. Do you see that in your current work environment? Or, hey, what newly developed skills do I have? And can I use those skills in a new position? You could really talk with that person and say, I feel most productive in this type of environment when I'm using these skills. And it looks like that aligns with the job description, but tell me a little bit about how you incorporate a supportive work environment, and does that align with some of the things I'm doing? So the thing I talk the most about with people is we're, preparing people for interviews, is that interview that you get is just as much them making sure you're a right fit for their position and their environment as it is your opportunity to make sure you're a right fit for their organization as well. So all of these things behind the 4 W's, your skills, they're all important for you to understand because it helps you make really good or come up with very good questions to make sure that it's a good fit for you when they get to that part in the interview that's always nerve-wracking for everybody that says, do you have any questions for me? Yes, I do. I've got 3 or 4 that I want to go through. So again, just another way to help prepare you for that part as well. So with all this, with all your transferable skills, your Holland codes, your 4 career W's, it's very important that you come up with like a personal development action plan. And so the best way to do that is to, take your career W's, your identified skills, your Holland codes, and you come up with that career development action plan. So whether you're looking at that first job, you're making a career change, you're wanting to do something different, whatever it might be, you want to take all of this data and not just say, okay, this is what I'm going to pursue, but really spend some time to come up with some specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound goals for you to, achieve whatever it is you might want to achieve. So when you talk about SMART goals, specific is what is it you want to accomplish? Who needs to be included? When do you want to do this? Why is this a goal of yours? So as you're identifying that next step in your career, you want to be as specific as you can with those things. You're measurable. You want to quantify the results as best you can. How can you measure your progress? How do you know when you met your goal? So you may say that, I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and I want to do that. I'm going to know I've achieved that by this, and this happening. So for instance, one specific goal may be, hey, I feel like I want to be an architect in my career. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find 3 people that are currently architects and talk to them about what it is to be an architect and what are some things that I could use, what are some skills that you might need for that, and so forth. And it's measurable because I'm going to have that done when I've achieved all 3. I'm going to know that I've achieved this goal that I need to do when I've had those 3 conversations. You have to start each goal with an action verb. It has to be relevant. So why are you setting this goal now? Is it aligned with your overall career goals? Is it aligned with my 4 career W's? And if you're asking yourself those questions, you may have all these goals you want to do and these specific things you want to do with your action plan. But if it's not aligned with what you're ultimately trying to achieve, then it's probably something you shouldn't spend time on, right? It may still be important, but you need to really prioritize those things and make sure that everything you're doing is very relevant and makes sense. And then set yourself a time frame that's realistic, with a start date, a target end date, and an actual completion date. So it's very important as you come up with these steps and these SMART goals, to put some time parameters on it and to hold yourself accountable, which is the most important thing. Because finding a new job or making a career change is almost a full-time job in itself. So if you're not planning it out properly, it could be some problems, or it might take you longer than it really could. So another way you can use your transferable skills is to develop what I call a personal impact statement, which will help with your resume and interview preparation as you're looking for these. So if you take your 4 career W's and your identified skills, and you kind of look at those things, it can help you incorporate those things into your resume, into your interview questions that you might ask the person that might be interviewing you for that position, as well as what we've talked about up to this point, helping you identify what that potential job is. And so here's an example of a personal impact statement. And a lot of times it takes some time to come up with this, but if you can come up with a really solid statement, that's what goes at the top of your resume. That's what you start maybe your cover letter with, or you incorporate into your cover letter. It's what that impact statement that really tells people what you're about and what you want to do, and who you are as a person. And it's really that catch statement that says, hey, this is somebody I want to talk to further. In addition, it also, if you come up with that personal impact statement, it helps you make sure you're always aligned with your goals and your career goals, because you can go back and say, okay, when I sat down and really did some thinking around this, these are the things that are important to me and what the impact I want to make in the world. Does this job allow me to do that? And if not, okay, I'm willing to, balance some of that out, but maybe 80% of this job will allow me to fulfill my impact statement. The other 20% I can live with, because those are things I can maybe do on the side as volunteer work or whatever it might be. So you can use all this data to help craft a personal impact statement, which can be very helpful as you continue your career search. It also gives you specific content for your resume and cover letter. You'd be surprised as you start to write all this stuff out, your cover letter almost writes itself. Your resume almost writes itself, because you're going to have some things you've been very good at in the different stages of your life. You can be very specific about what you achieved at this position or this part in your life or whatever it may be. And you're going to be surprised how easy it is to take all this information, develop your cover letter, develop your resume, and most importantly, help you come up with some questions to make sure that that job is a perfect fit for you when you do get that interview. It also, like we talked about, helps you interview questions. So you can identify scenarios you can review during your interviews. So again, going back to those success stories, you have 3 stories there, potentially 10, even though you had to pick your top 3, that you could talk about when people are asking you about some examples about your leadership or communication or project management, whatever it may be. Helps you identify those questions to the interviewer. And again, ensures your 4 career W's are met or identified to calibrate that it is the right fit for you just as much as it is the right fit for them. In terms of potential job identification, you're going to then be able to go back and say, okay, I've found these target 3 jobs that I really want to pursue. Is that job aligned with your personal interests, your Holland codes? Are your 4 career W's evident in that job description? Is it going to allow you to be who you want to be, what you value, be in a productive work environment? Some of that you may not be able to determine by the job description, but it's going to give you a good kind of high level view to kind of align those things. How are your skills going to be utilized? So if you're going through a job description of a target job that you found and 2 of your transferable skills are listed, there could be you could still be very successful, but are those going to be things that you're going to be able to start and hit the ground running and bring to the table? Whereas if you're looking at a job description and there's say 8 or 10 or 12 of your transferable skills listed, you know that you're going to have a lot that you can bring to the table, and you're going to have a lot of value that you're going to bring to that organization, and specifically the person that's going to be interviewing you, because you want to highlight those transferable skills that are also in that job description in your resume, in your cover letter. So as they're reading it, they're like, gosh, this sounds familiar. You know what? It's lined perfectly with the job description that we have posted. So this is something I want to bring in for that interview. So that's how you can kind of look at your transferable skills once you've identified them, to see if they align with the job description. And then what transferable skills do you already possess that maybe aren't listed in that job description? And you could say, hey, here's some other things that I feel like I could bring to the table that aren't necessarily in your job description, but I think could be a value add, because I've been very successful with these things in my career. So a little different, once you've identified that job that you want to pursue, kind of go through this checklist in your mind to make sure that those things are all there, to set yourself up and give yourself the most value add to that person that's looking for it, because that's what's going to help you get that job interview and be successful in that interview once you get it. So some additional resources that we kind of wrap up today. I've given you a lot of information, a lot to kind of think about, but some additional resources you can use right now and we'll have access to this on the website, but there's a career awareness worksheet that you can have, that you can help you write out the who, why, what, and where. What are your top 5 skills? What are some potential occupations? What are some next steps? So just a very good tool. If you're interested, you can use, but you certainly make up your own as well. This is just one that I've used in the past, but helps you. I've found that if you're documenting on a one-page thing, your 4 career W's, your skills, some potential occupations you're looking for, it's a nice reference sheet that allows you to go back and do that. So that's a free tool that you can use. The next one is the U.S. Department of Labor has ONET, which you can see the link here. It's www.onetonline.org. It's ran by the U.S. Department of Labor. And this website has everything you'd ever possibly want to know about any job that's recognized through the U.S. Department of Labor in the United States. You can also, under the advanced search, if you click on that, you can put in the Holland code that we identified, and it will list jobs that fall into that Holland code. You can also go down here, once you find the job and there's skills, you can click on that and it'll list the skills that are necessary for that job. You can also find occupations by certain skills and by Holland codes and things like that as well. So a really good tool, something that's really helpful. You can go out there right now, it's free of charge, a ton of information out there that you can use to help in your career search using your transferable skills, your Holland codes, and some of the things we talked about today. The ONET is the nation's primary source of occupational information. So there's more information out there that you could ever want to look at, in my opinion, in terms of your career. And then the last thing I want to offer is, for those that are registered and kind of attend this webinar or have contacted the library, you can feel free. I'd love to hear your story and to offer you a free 30-minute career coaching call if you're interested. I have a link to my calendar there, or you can, on the next page, you have my contact information here if you're interested. But please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear your story. It's a no obligation 30-minute call just to kind of see if there's anything I can do to help you in your career search, help you identify your transferable skills, and help you just kind of take that next step intentionally towards whatever goals you're trying to achieve within your personal life and your careers. I'd be more than happy to have that call with you. And most of the times these go more than 30 minutes, which is great. But I'd love just to connect with you if you're interested, and we can continue that conversation. So with that, we'll end today's webinar. Please feel free to reach out to me at the information on the screen. And I look forward to talking to you and wish you all best of luck as you continue your career goal. Thank you for attending today, and have a great day.